Shelly, I think we're probably okay to go ahead and get started. So I'll leave that open. People will continue to join, I'm sure. So I'll kick it over to you to get us started.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dan. Good morning, everyone. As we've established, still morning. That's fantastic.
Nice.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shelley McCallig. I'm the Director of Member Services here at CICU. Part of my job within that role is to identify potential partners for our members that offer effective solutions to the many challenges faced in higher education today. As such, I am very excited to introduce one of CICU's newest affiliate partners, CollegeAPP, a leading provider of person-level data that helps institutions identify adult and non-traditional learners with a demonstrated intent to enroll. As colleges and universities continue to navigate shifting enrollment landscapes, rising marketing costs, and changing student demographics, innovative approaches to recruitment have never been more important. Today's session will explore practical strategies for reaching and engaging high-intent adult learners both in New York and across the country. Whether you're focused on growing graduate enrollment, expanding programs for non-traditional students, launching new adult-focused offerings, or addressing declines in the traditional first-time freshman population, this webinar is designed with your challenges in mind. We are fortunate to be joined by Dan Curtis, Vice President for four-year colleges and universities at CollegeAPP, as well as Justin Hume, Director of Enrollment at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, my neighbor right up here in Albany, New York, a CICU member institution and CollegeAPP partner. Justin will share his firsthand experience, including how RPI has leveraged CollegeAPP's data and insights to strengthen enrollment outcomes and maximize marketing investments. By the end of today's webinar, we hope you'll gain a better understanding of how to identify prospective students who are actively considering enrollment, reduce wasted marketing spend, and build stronger undergraduate and graduate recruitment pipelines. Thank you for being with us today. I'll now turn it over to Dan to begin the presentation.
And good morning again, everyone. Very excited to be with you this morning. I'm going to go over a quick agenda for us, and then we'll jump right in. We thought it might be helpful as the partnership with CICU is new, and some of you may have met us along the way, but assuming most of you don't know exactly who we are and what we do, give you a quick overview of our solution. But certainly we want to leave most of the hour to Justin to tell his story over at RPI so that you can get a firsthand account from somebody who's worked with us for many years about how it's gone for them. Um, Justin also has prepared some advice and tips for anyone considering CollegeAPP. So if what you see today is at all interesting, certainly I and my team would be very excited to spend dedicated time with you. If that's at all of interest, we'll put up our contact information at the end. Justin's as well if you'd like to speak with him. But certainly giving you some advice about how to make the most of the opportunity. We'll have Q&A at the end. We're also encouraging participation throughout. As it is a webinar format, everybody's on mute. So if you want to use the chat or the Q&A, please feel free to do so. And certainly as we get toward the end, if you'd like to come off mute, I can do that one by one. If you'll just raise your hand to flag me that that's what you'd like to do, I will be happy to take you off mute so you can ask your question of me or Justin. To get us going, though, we'd love to have a little participation from the group. I'm going to launch a poll here in a second, but we'd love to get a sense for the folks that are on the call, how things are going, generally speaking. So I'm going to launch that poll really quick. If my buttons hadn't moved, I would. Let's see, there's my poll, and we're going to do this one. So hopefully that'll come up here in a second. It's the same questions or the same question plus the responses that you saw on the screen a moment ago. So please feel free to indicate. Everybody is anonymous here, so you know feel free to give your honest evaluation of where you stand today. We will share the results here in a second. For those that are live on the webinar, you'll be able to see the results. We have learned that they don't show up on the recording, so I will also make sure to share audibly what the results are here. Give that a few more minutes. Definitely have a big winner here so far. And I believe it should be a multi-select, so if more than one of these apply to you, feel free to select a couple. Okay, all right, I'm going to end that poll, and hopefully it should. There we go. I'm going to share the results. So I'd love a nod. Shelley, can you see that? Okay, I'm seeing a nod. Okay, great. So Unsurprisingly, the huge winner here is I'm constantly being asked to do more with less. For those of you who have been in higher education for most of your careers, that's not necessarily a this year thing, right? That's just par for the course for who we are when we work in higher ed. But certainly it gets more and more intense. And as enrollment challenges increase, the fact that our budgets don't increase to meet that challenge can be really, really hard for folks who are trying to hit certain targets that are becoming more and more challenging to hit. A couple people did say that what they used to do doesn't work as well as it used to, and one person at least said, "My enrollment is up, but I don't feel like it's definitely always going to be up," right? And while we can always and should congratulate our teams and feel great about that outcome, this sort of uncertainty about the future is something that certainly is getting more and more intense as time wears on. So thank you everyone for participating in that. Jess and I will keep that in mind as we share with you what we have prepared today. And I'm going to click forward and we'll go ahead and get started on showing you how this works. So I always say at the onset, just so everybody knows, you think CollegeAPP, CollegeAPP. I think I've heard of them before, but you may be thinking of Common App, and we have a very similar name to Common App. And I always like to say that what we do is quite different from what Common App does, despite the very similar names. The app in our name, in fact, is an acronym for Adult Prospect Pipeline. The challenge we set ourselves is trying to help institutions like yours find and recruit adult learners for either the some college no degree completer profiles. So it can be on the undergrad degree completer, definitely in the grad, professional, executive space. Anybody who's not coming straight out of high school, if it's important or interesting to you to seek out and find those folks and bring them to your institution, we've built something that we think can help. The what we attempt to do is highlight for you intent to enroll. Often you will see intent, and for any marketers that are on the call today, this will align exactly with how you have often, I'm sure, thought about getting the word out. People will search for you, right? And a lot of marketing teams are spending a good amount of their marketing budget on search engine optimization and Google search and social and paid social in ways that they can say, if people are looking for me, I want to make sure they find me. Online MBA in the Northeast, right? Like you can buy those words, and if somebody types those words, you will show up. But that's good, right? Because that's a pretty clear signal that they are thinking about or planning on going back to school. Our hypothesis has always been that people are thinking about or planning on going back to school long before they start searching. And especially for that adult profile, there is some pretty significant change that needs to occur in their lives for them to do that. They might have to wait for their youngest to get into kindergarten. They've got to wait for their current project at work to calm down. And it could be months or years before they're actually ready, but they are thinking about it today. And we thought, hey, if we could figure out who is thinking about it, even if they're not acting like they're thinking about it, and we can present that to the colleges and universities across the United States, that might be a really valuable insight for them so that they can start to better recruit those adult learners. So we accomplish that with two major components. One is, if this will click for me, there we go, a massive consumer database that contains the records of 99.1% of all American adults. So there is a very strong possibility that every single person on this webinar today is in this database. It exists because in the world of presidential politics, specifically in the early 2000s, one of the campaigns had the idea that, hey, if we could cobble together all of the publicly available and commercially available data about voter age people, and we look then at the polling results that we have from real people, we have real answers from real people about who they're going to vote for and what issues they care about. But if we have that as base data, and then we know hundreds and hundreds of things about hundreds of millions of people, might we have a data set large enough to make accurate predictions about who's going to vote for our person versus the other person and what issues they care about? Then we can direct market to those people who are on the fence about our candidate's platform relative to those issues and see if we can swing them our way. So that was their idea. And it worked so well that literally every single presidential campaign since has used this exact same database to do that exact same thing. So it's a proven methodology with this huge data set, hundreds of billions of data points that live inside of this database. The database became available for commercial use roughly 10 years ago. So companies like ours can use that same data set to predict other things, which I'll talk about here in a moment. So one, huge database that we have. Two, borrowing that methodology, we don't really care as much about who you're going to vote for. That's not really an indicator about if you're actively thinking about going back to school right now. So we need to collect our own base data. So we survey people on a rolling basis. We have collected to date almost 350,000 survey results with one core question, which is, do you personally intend to enroll in any education or training over the next 2 years? So sort of a longer view, and it is intentionally vague, any education or training over the next 2 years, because what we want to do with that question is weed out anybody who would say no. No, I do not intend to enroll in anything over the next 2 years. That in itself is a really valuable thing for you because you can then say, I'm not going to spend any time or money on those people. If they do say yes, though, I do intend to enroll in something over the next 2 years, then they get other questions like, okay, what might you want to enroll in? What types of programs or courses would be interesting to you? How do you want to go back to school? Fully online, fully in person, some sort of hybrid? Are you seeking a job or promotion right now, and that's why you're thinking about going back to school? How much education do you already have? What's keeping you from going back to school? So there's a series of questions that these people get and are answering for us so that we have 350,000 responses upon which we can then build our own predictive models to say, hey, we know how Jenny is, that Jenny does have intent to enroll and that Jenny is thinking about business programs and that Jenny wants those fully online. Can we then say, who out there is like Jenny? On much more than just surface level things, not who else is 27, female, lives in Wisconsin, and makes less than $100,000 a year. Not that, but combinations of variables, models that take weeks to run and complete and give us some very sophisticated answers to who else might be out there that's like that. Some of those, I mentioned these already, but the things that we're predicting are things like intent to enroll, program of interest, modality preference, job seeking intent. You can see on the right here the program interest models that we have. So it gets fairly granular. There's 10 different categories that we have. I'll show you this here in a moment. So from there, you can actually use those to create target audiences. So instead of what you might do today, which is you go to Meta and they've got a built-in tool that says, hey, show me the people who are 25 to 50, who live within 100 miles of my campus, who make less than X amount of dollars a year, who do or don't have children. These are all things you can do today. Instead, you could do this. You could say, hey, show me New York. There's 263 million adults in the database across the country. Just by choosing New York, you're down to the 13.4 million adults in the state of New York. From there, we can say, hey, let's look at those that have some college, no degree. And as you click forward from there, we say, okay, hey, we've got now that you can see that circled number there, 3.6 million New Yorkers that have some college, no degree. You say, okay, of those, which ones have intent to enroll? Because not all of them. I mean, many people who have some, we often look at that some college, no degree population and say, hey, all of them are ripe for the picking. But it's definitely true that most of them are not thinking about going back to school, at least not right now. But some of them are, so let's isolate those folks. Say, okay, now we're down to 812,000 people who live in New York, have some college, no degree, and have intent to enroll. Further, I could say, hey, what I'm thinking about is a degree completer program that's in the IT cyber realm. So of the 812,000, which ones are thinking about or would be interested in IT cyber as their program of interest? I apply that filter and I'm now down to 157,000 individuals. This program is offered online. Also, regardless of where I am within the state, I'm not drivable for everybody. So let's look of the 157,000, which ones have a preference for online learning. Now we're down to 44,000 people. We've gone from 13 million people to 44,000 people. You can do the exact same, by the way, for grad, professional, not IT cyber. I know there's a lot of there's engineering schools on the call today. There's liberal arts schools on the call today. So regardless of what you have to offer, we've got the ability to do that. This is just one example of many that you can do. But if I just say, hey, I've also got an online master's in IT cyber, I can just switch the one filter and I'm now looking at 31,000 different people. These are all different from the 44,000 some college no degree folks I was looking at a moment ago. And I have two distinct audiences that I can then market to. If we look at the neighborhood level, just to give you a sense, if I apply no filters whatsoever and I zoom all the way in, what you can see here is down to the shape of the home is the level of detail in here, and there's a dot on almost every single house. Again, 99.1% of all American adults are in this database, so you would expect that. If I apply those same filters to this neighborhood, what you'll find is that all but four of those dots disappear. And we think that's really the value here is because you don't want to spend your precious marketing dollars. This, I'm trying to do more with less. All of those dollars are precious to you if you can avoid spending them on people who are always going to ignore you anyway, either because they don't have intent to enroll, or they don't have some college no degree, or they're not interested in IT cyber. There's any number of reasons why it's not a good fit for them. But if you can eliminate those people from your pool, there is a huge possibility that you're saving tens of thousands of dollars in marketing costs by just not spending on them in the first place, but getting just as many leads as you would have gotten otherwise, because these are the only people that were probably going to respond to you anyway. So it becomes an efficiency and precision tool in the hands of the clients that we work with. All right. Lastly, you would activate campaigns. So we now have a list of individuals that are the highest probability folks to be interested in the thing that you're trying to market to them about. You still need to get in front of them, but the database contains the data that would allow you to get in front of them through any number of channels. Our strong recommendation for folks that we work with is that you use it for social and digital campaigns. So you passively get in front of them, you start showing up in their feeds, but with very precise messaging about that degree completer online IT program that you have. That will resonate with them. Many of them will click on that ad. Many of those that click on that ad will fill out your lead form, enter your funnel, and can start getting worked by your team. Just show you some quick results. It is worth asking, but does it work? I mean, you're telling me you don't have answers from everybody in my state, let alone everybody across the country. You're making a prediction as to whether or not they have intent to enroll and what their program of interest is. Is your prediction good? What we find is that when people use this, and this is on average, Justin will share with you his very specific results at RPI here in a moment, but this is aggregated across all of our 4-year clients that an audience created in this way is 6 to 8 times more likely to click on the ad that is presented to them, and 3 to 4 times more likely to not just click, but fill out your lead form and enter your funnel. That's those top two boxes. And in the bottom here too, you can see that huge reduction in marketing costs because you don't have to advertise to 150,000 people when instead you can just advertise to the 44,000 people that meet all of your criteria. So you spend less. Your cost per click goes down, your cost per lead goes down, your lead volume does not go down. At least not in all cases. I know Justin has a specific example where, and sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder, Justin, but I just want to make sure I reconcile what I'm saying with what you're about to say, where they did in fact get fewer leads, but it did not, it was actually a good thing because it was a more adequate number for their team to work, and they still got lots and lots of enrollments. So regardless of what stage you're at, it can be a very, again, efficient and precise tool for you. Last thing for me, I'll just say, in case it's interesting, some but not all of the 4-year institutions that we're working with, a good handful are CICU members, others within the SUNY and CUNY systems. They're within the state of New York and surrounding areas. So without further ado, hopefully that's helpful for, what is it that this thing that CICU has now available. We've got that answered, but would love for you to hear from one of your peers instead of me as to how it works and how it worked for them. So, Justin, passing it over to you, sir.
All right, appreciate that, Dan. So, you might be familiar with RPI already. So RPI is always going to tell the world, "Hey, we were the first engineering school in North America," and that's one of our important pieces of legacy. But I actually serve the RPI at Work division of the Institute, which was founded about 71 years ago from various campuses in Connecticut. So actually, I'm speaking to you from just outside of New Haven. But our division was founded in response to an RFP process launched by Raytheon Technologies' predecessor organization was actually the United Aircraft Corporation. So this was a group that was Boeing plus Pratt and Whitney plus United Airlines and Hamilton Sundstrand that built airplanes out of the Hartford area and, of course, operated facilities throughout the U.S. But that's what we were born from, this need to educate graduate students in professional tracks for graduate management so that people can be promoted up into filling those sort of leadership positions in organizations like that, as well as technical engineers. As decades went on by, we, certainly spread our wings beyond just focusing on this Raytheon Technologies group. We had separate campuses in Groton, Connecticut to serve Merck and General Dynamics Electric Boat. We had another facility in North Berwick, Maine. But this was now actually 10 years ago. So, about the same time that Dan was talking about this database becoming public, we made the switch over from brick and mortar campus initiatives into online programs and tried to start scaling to a national level. So I think that might actually be a great segue into the next piece here. So after a few years of starting to reestablish relationships here in Connecticut, in New York, in New England writ large, we were looking at an issue of needing to grow enrollment. And we had launched a pair of RFP processes. One of these we, well, had to kill because COVID. So we restarted then about 6, 9 months later as things started to get normal and people got vaccines again. And that led to us finding a vendor that RPI had worked with historically and that had developed some marketing campaigns with us. But I'll tell you what, it just wasn't a good fit. I can imagine that some of you might be familiar with experiences like these. We were getting absolutely boatloads of leads, but they were all dead ends. They were telling us that we were being able to get in contact with folks that worked at organizations with substantial tuition benefits that were interested in education. But I'll tell you what, no offense to any of these folks, they were people like with the Starbucks benefit that was announced at about the same time, or people with the UPS benefit that's, our pretty standard 5250 per year, typically for undergraduate education, which, well, that's not RPI's people, at least in the time where we were launching this, because every single one of our programs was graduate level. And well, they helped us to develop some creative, and I'll tell you, it was a little bit squirrely and it didn't quite match how we communicate the brand and the type of value that RPI presents. And well, they gave us a massive email list. Um, I was actually in touch with one of our colleagues at another institution just yesterday that was asking about email lists. And I said, gosh, those are challenging, aren't they? And in this particular case, we later discovered that the email list of 120,000 contacts that we were given was on the basis of those survey results that many of us had done umpteen years ago when we were in high school that told you that you might want to be a race car driver or something of that sort. These were people that responded to those surveys when they were in high school, saying that they were interested in STEM education. And then they filtered forward to say this person is at least 25 years old. They had, at the time, an interest in STEM. And what really got weird when trying to contact these folks via the email list, we had so many people that said, "Who are you? Why are you reaching out to me? How did you get my contact details?" And it was a tremendous amount of work for the team, not only in trying to manage the leads that we were coming in from new RFI submissions, but also to manage those prospects that were saying, RPI, why the heck are you getting in touch with me? So it became very clear that this wasn't a good fit. So after 6 months, we made the call initially to kill the creative and then later to kill the agreement in its entirety. So um, we had to kind of eat our lunch in this one and say, you know what? we paid you a bunch of money that is not being used. We have 6 months left on the contract. We're not getting that time. We're not getting that money back. We need a new solution. And that's actually how we initially got in touch with CollegeAPP. So I think this is a good time for the new slide. Exactly. So our team at the time had grown. Still small outfit, as many of yours might also be. So we had 4 people, with one person that was able to create creative in-house. I supported this team. I was writing some of the creative, and what was really cool about this opportunity, where with the previous vendor, we were just going out there and servicing ads to the entire population of the US of people that said, I might be interested in graduate education. I filled out a survey 10 years ago that said that I was interested in STEM education, and so on. Um, we were able to filter on that intent to enroll piece that Dan had spoken about earlier, the pretty sophisticated model that says, well, based off of your survey results, you might be interested in a program like this. And for RPI, that was really a big deal. Being able to understand if somebody was interested in graduate education, as well as crucially in our case, occupations and employment data. The RPI at work price point is significant. There's no sugarcoating it. We have multiple master's degrees that are more than $70,000 to complete. Not many people are super willing to do that out of pocket. So, what we needed to do was find people in areas that were technology focused, that were in our student population industries, where they had tuition benefits, where they had a job title and responsibility that fit the persona that our programs were developed for. So that was kind of a crux thing. Our bread and butter is aerospace and defense people, those that are working in nuclear research, pharmaceuticals, and professional services. So what we did in working with CollegeAPP was obviously having this intent to enroll score, but filtering based off of a series of employers that we already worked with and already had a partnership with, to whom we extend a tuition discount, where the tuition benefit for the employee themselves means that they would be able to attend our programs with little to no out-of-pocket expense, and where we can say this person is likely in a career stage where they need a master's degree to get promoted next. We could find people that were in professional development cohorts where, the master's degree is part of that development cohort. We could find people that haven't gotten a promotion in 5 years. So they're looking in the mirror saying, you know what? I did some great things for the first 10 years of my career. Now things are different. The educational landscape, the professional landscape is different. In my particular case, I drank the Kool-Aid and did one of the RPI programs as well, because my first master's was done in 2010. And at the time, we we didn't commonly have these sort of data analytic approaches that were in graduate education. So regression analyses, forecasting, simulation, these different kind of things. I'm not unique in that case. I am quite similar to a lot of the people that go into the RPI at work programs in age and demographic, but that's an important group that we were able to target into. Those with a bachelor's degree, possibility of already having completed a master's with generous compensation, financial compensation for themselves, with the tuition benefits, where we could say you haven't had a promotion in a couple few years, and you might be thinking for that next thing that you need to do to accelerate some job change. So I described in a little bit the ways that we developed the personas. But what we did that was crucial to this was look into our existing enrollment and those students that were most likely to enroll from our prospect groups. We filtered these, we looked at them and developed these user personas saying, if you enrolled in, for example, our systems engineering program, here are some common features that came up for many of our applicants. Ditto for mechanical engineering. Same also for our MBA programs. Using that sort of information, we were able to engage with Dan's team and say, hey, um, RPI is kind of lucky in that we have a lot of people that have interest in data analytics and that can work on the filters and find people. But you don't have to have that talent in-house. As a matter of fact, Dan's colleague Sean is an absolute wizard at building audiences, and he's a super fun guy to work with in saying, this is the type of person that we're after trying to hunt down. Can you help me get in front of them? So that's something that's really interesting. We do a lot of our work using the Meta platforms. We had also done things on LinkedIn, but we found that the ad spend was a little bit high. But they also have over-the-top techniques where, um, you know, again, talking about our engineering population, a lot of these engineers might be gamers, so we can get on Switch. A lot of these engineers might be at the stage of their lives where they've got kids, so we could get onto Disney Plus so that when your kids are asleep and you're watching The Mandalorian late at night, well, we can get in front of you there as well. Um, so, Dan, maybe this is a good time to move to the next slide. All right. So, out of this work in building our prospect audience, in building our targets, and and trying to connect with people, the real thing that we were trying to focus on was not just growth, but the efficacy of that growth. When we worked with our previous partner, the one that I earlier mentioned in 2020 and 2021, we were drowning in leads. And one of the big issues as enrollment professionals is trying to build connection with your prospective student. That connection and affiliation where somebody can see themselves actually attending your school for reasons perhaps other than this is the best school because it's the best school. This is the best school for me because they see me, they understand me, they have programs that serve my direct needs. And I don't think this is a hot take. The way that you communicate that is by having a conversation with somebody. When we were getting 120,000 people in and, gosh, at a certain point we were getting over 100 leads in per week with that other provider, we couldn't get in and have those crucial conversations with prospects and say, well, shoot, what do you actually want to do by going back to school? Where do you see your career going? How do we build alignment in between what your goals are and what these programs were designed to achieve? So, one of the biggest outcomes for us was dialing into this really, really tight audience where we could provide that first in class service to connect with people and understand what they want, such that you can see the numbers right here. If somebody was served a college app ad and they started an application, they had a 73% chance of enrolling, likelihood to enroll. So that was the yield rate. If somebody applied and was an ad recipient, 73% enrolled versus, let's call it 42% for organic leads. We found our people. And we found our people through those persona builds. Something that I think is really crux is I view this partnership not just as lead generation, but also decision support. And I think that's an important thing to consider tier two, and which I think you can see in this apply to enroll conversion rate. Do people really want to go out and buy something that's not in demand? When you think about it, maybe not so much. Because there we're making consumer choices based off of considerations that are entirely of our own. But if we're making those consumer choices here in higher education, where we're seeing ads that are saying, hey, you should probably go to my school because it's a pretty good place. And those ads display people that look like you, that are doing things like what you do at work or the things that you aspire to do at work, it makes the work of an enrollment professional quite a bit easier. Your user has been identified. They have filled an RFI for your website. Your enrollment team is reaching out to them. And as they're doing their scrolls on their phones, or as I said, watching TV at night, they're seeing additional communications saying that your programs are a really good fit for that particular user. And this is really what I see to be fundamental value. Um, our work is made substantially easier when a prospect is viewing those ads as well. Um, here's one of the big pieces, and this was a study that we put together a couple years ago. When we got closer into our audience, we were able to cut cost per lead. There you see it almost by a factor of 10. It is substantial. So cost per lead dropped from $1,300 to $170. And you can see the lead to application time dropped precipitously as well. And this is because of that quality of target. Fundamentally, that's exactly it. We found our people. And it makes that work of pulling the individual through the pipeline just so much easier. Something that I do want to point out, as you can see the enrollment numbers in the bottom left-hand corner, this is another fundamental. So in 2025, we had 54 students enroll that we could match back and say were directly attributable to CollegeAPP ads. That was the origin of the RFI submission that the person had done, be it registering for one of our events, just sharing information and saying, hey, RPI, please communicate with me about this really nifty program that I'm interested in. You'll see 2026 numbers are less, but that's because our biggest intake is still to come. Fall is the biggest intake. It is normally 3 to 4 times the size of the summer intake and at least double the size of the January intake. So, given the fact that we also enroll on a continual basis and people are still depositing, and I don't want to report numbers that come out before the fifth week census. Um, you could expect that number shown there, 2026, to approximately double, if not more, by the time that we close out the semester in, September, October, thereabouts.
We'll be happy to report the actuals back to everybody on this call.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We got you there. Hey, Dan, as I see that you just piped in there, as I've been going on this kind of stream of consciousness, is there anything that you think that I've forgotten to mention so far?
You may have touched on it a little bit, but as you and I were talking about this previously, you talked about those 444 leads. Is that a number worth sort of bringing back to this group as part of the story that you already told?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great comment. Umpteen years ago when we had that other provider, as I said, we were absolutely drowning. When we started up with CollegeAPP, we started up in a place of wanting to dial that audience as tightly as we possibly can and to have that great yield. But then institutional objectives ended up changing, and we were told basically dump gas on the fire. You need to grow as quickly as you possibly can. So for the past, I think it's 8 of the last 10 semesters, we've had on average 30% growth year on year. Um, when we started out with you all, we were getting around 100 leads per semester via this platform. And as we're entering the fall semester, I just got a report from Sean, who I mentioned earlier, that said looking into this year, we've got 444 driven by this platform. in the past year. So
Yes.
that's really the big idea about scaling. Thinking, Dan, also about one of your earlier points when you were describing the model, the people that respond to the surveys that may not have actively Googled, "Hey, I want to go to an MBA program in the Northeast that's online." Um, I think of our college app leads as falling into three development cycles. Um, for the decision making process. We've got those that are fast and ready and they're just shopping around for that program that just feels right for them. They're already going to apply to a school. You just need to be the person they're in market for them to find right away. There's another cycle that I see to be about a 6 month decision cycle. But then when we go back to the, 100, 200, 300 inquiries that had joined us in previous years, those are part of that longer cycle group that we're still seeing activity from. So, while that's not really captured in the number 444 that we referenced, there's still casually shopping out there. And we still do see those previous leads pop up for us semester on semester saying, "It wasn't the right time when I first shared my details with you, but now that kid's in kindergarten," or, "Now I've got that new role at work. Now something has changed where I finally have a little bit more time." Or maybe your drip communication strategy was successful enough that, one of these things finally got to me.
I think it's a good point is, we, especially lately, and just so everybody on the call knows, I spent the better part of a decade in an enrollment role at a private institution once upon a time, and so I've sat in your seat and know what it feels like, and that pressure to say, but this next intake is the only one that matters, and you do everything you can to drive that number. When you're
Yes.
thinking about adults, it is important to remember, yes, you're going to get some now, but you're going to get more later, and you're going to get more later, but they won't choose you if they don't know about you. So, the question on the survey saying, do you intend to enroll in any education or training over the next 2 years? Some of those people are a year and a half away from doing it, but they're thinking about it today. On whether or not you are on their short list, hinges on whether or not you get in front of them a year and a half out, as opposed to just trying to get as many as you can in. So this is really, it can help in the short term. It's definitely really helpful in the long term as well. So as you're building a machine that can repeatably bring you a decent class time and time again, this is where we feel like there's a really good component of that machine.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Dan. I've previously worked at other institutions where you're just focusing on the next semester, putting out the fire that's closest to you, if you will.
Right.
And something that was a behavior change that we affected a few years ago was when somebody inquires, this is an RPI thing, so you're seeing behind the curtain a little bit. When somebody inquires, they are getting high touch, high contact from the team for the first 90 days or until that interest is qualified, where somebody can say, "Hey, I shared my contact details for you with you for, fall 2027. Um, Maybe I didn't want somebody to be reaching out to me. Reach out to me when the January term comes around. We can qualify that person and more effectively bring them on through, but also service and honor that interest, in a way that's not just working that immediate problem." So those folks mature for us pretty well. What's coming up for RPI in the future as we continue to work with CollegeAPP? Um, Weekly, we get a performance report from the CollegeAPP team. So this tells us what our cost per lead was, what our cost per click was, what our frequency was. We can see what ads are performing and dump more ad spend into those that are producing results. Or conversely, we can draw back resources from the things that aren't working for us. I love the ability to run A/B versions of various ads with video changes or copy changes, things like that, which draw better improvement. Right now, we're about to retire our existing ad set. Um, And that existing ad set goes from the theme of, your upcoming challenge. I somewhat referenced this spirit in talking about many of our students before of, hey, there's a challenge that's coming up for you. Are you prepared to meet it? You know, join an RPI at work program and learn the skills and abilities that you need to be able to have that growth in your career. We're changing from that ad set to a bunch of alumni testimonial ad sets where it's saying, hey, rather than challenging you, Dan, to go and advance your career, we can have somebody say, I did one of these programs and these are the outcomes that I saw. Something else that's coming up for us, and I somewhat alluded to this earlier, when we started working with CollegeAPP, we were graduate program exclusive. This fall, we're launching an undergraduate degree completion program. And well, that presents a huge opportunity for us and something that CollegeAPP is actually quite good at. As Dan had said, this degree completer audience, we can find the people that have, X amount of credits completed and can serve them ads. But we're seeing also there being a big opportunity with this military affiliation audience, people that have that tuition benefit to enroll in an expensive program. There is the Navy Nuclear Lab in Niskayuna, New York, that's right next to us, and with whom we already have a relationship. They've got the tuition benefits, they've got transferable credits, they might have previous trainings that we would be able to recognize, credit for prior learning, those different sort of opportunities so that we can meet that person and say, hey, rather than getting a bachelor's in general studies, do you want to take that experience that you already have and convert it into a bachelor's degree in production and operations management, or a series of bachelor's degree certificates that we are also launching in areas like data analytics, Lean Six Sigma, systems engineering, production management, and these various areas that are, highly in demand, particularly up and down the Hudson Valley in New York. Just saying, there's a lot of organizations that are in our backyard with large tuition benefits, with large technician workforces, where we can meet that person and provide value not only to the learner but also to the organization. So that's what's coming up for us here. Thoughts and tips. Um, I said this before, study the heck out of your current prospect pool to discover those personas that are going to work best for you. What are the common data points for people that yield and enroll and that stick around and complete your degree programs? We're all working with constrained resources here. That's just where you're going to be able to get the most out of each enrollment. When you've prepared that data set, you get to work with the likes of that fellow that I mentioned earlier, Sean Godlewski, and be able to build out an audience that reflects those people that have the biggest return on investment for you. Take the time to do the homework. It's going to pay off dividends for you. And then the other thing that comes up, and this is maybe my soapbox moment here. When you're approaching further education, you're often doing it from a place of personal vulnerability. I need to go and further my education because there's something that I don't have. There's something that's missing. There's something that I can get through going back to a college or university. When you understand the personal motivations and the internal sensibilities of that audience, you can dial in very strong value-based messaging that doesn't just say, we're the best program for you because we're the best dang program. We're the best program because we see and understand you, maybe because we've been there before and we've worked with students like you before. When somebody can see and identify with a program, that's your student that's going to enroll and your student that's going to persist. So, um, probably preaching to the choir on that fact, but definitely something that I would bear in mind if I were to consider working with the likes of College App here.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. We really appreciate your story. We're coming up on the last 6 or 7 minutes. We definitely want to leave time for questions and give you a minute to either think of those and type them in. We have a couple that have come in so far that we can start with, but please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A, or if you'd like to come off mute, raise your hand and I can happily take you off mute for questions for either me or Justin. The first question was about whether or not this is an exchange of buying lists, is how I interpret the question. Like, are we telling College App what we want, and College App is selling us a list? Justin, feel free to. I mean, I've got my answer to that, but if you want to talk about like how you use the tool, and you rely a lot on our team, it sounds like, but that's not a requirement per se. Any comments you'd have on what a client actually gets from College App?
Yeah, a consultative process. That's probably the easiest thing. I've had a wonderful experience in working with the team to find out who our people are and how best to serve them content. And that's one of the things. Like, we're not getting an email list. Yes, you can include an email list in your contract. At least we have, but we consider those people prospects, and they're low level inquiries. It's a very minor feature, at least to our current thinking of how to partner with College App. The majority of our work is serving video ads out to audiences that are likely to be interested in our programs, and relying on that interested person to submit a request for information um, form with us to continue the conversation. And we do that in a number of different ways. We do it through um, landing pages where somebody can click an ad and they get routed to the landing page. They see some program information. They can fill out their details. Cool. That's way one. Way two, we also have in-app RFIs. So if you're cruising on Instagram and you see one of our ads and you say, boy, that looks pretty cool, you can click on it and it will pre-populate in the information in the Instagram environment, not, routing you into another page. That's way number two. Way number three, we are also running retargeting ads. So if a viewer has seen our ad sets a couple times, we have a different set that basically acknowledges you've seen our ads a couple times. Why don't you take a moment and join us on an event so that you can have a conversation with a human being, um, you know, in a context similar to what we're doing here today, so that you can hear what the thing is really about. So all that's to say, in my mind, the email list is very minor. It's the cherry on top. It is a value add, but the real substance of the relationship is serving media out to interested audiences.
Yep. And I would add to that it's worth noting, and I'll if you remember back to the screenshots I was showing of New York and sort of building that audience, it's worth noting that that is a tool that we use, yes, but it's actually a tool that our clients get access to as well. And so no, we're not, quote unquote, selling you a list based on the parameters that you present to us, but you actually get an unlimited list generator
Yeah.
in access to that very tool. So you can do some of what Justin described, say, hey, we're going to try this. Oh, that didn't work very well. Let me try something else. Let me A/B test. You're not actually buying discrete lists. You're subscribing to an unlimited use database that allows you to learn and grow and research. Yes, the output is a list, but that's not what you buy from us necessarily. You have access to do all of those things within the tool itself. So all of those screens that I showed, that is something that you could do on your own, or as Justin is mentioning, with the help of our team. We've got Sean, and he's got a bunch of people on his team as well that help people with that list building piece.
That list building tool is a heck of a lot of fun to play on. I am very data centric. I get a real kick out of trying to find where exactly my people are. So just to throw that out there, and as a little side plug, Dan did mention how that tool started out in being in use in the early 2000s for various election cycles. I was loving it when it was our last election, hearing about this tool on NPR and being able to talk to my friends of this is what I actually play with. It is a really neat device. You know, the old Superman pledge of like with great power comes great responsibility. Yes. But it's a really fun device and is very effective in getting in front of your audience.
All right. Well, on that note, please feel free to contact us at any point today or beyond. I'll leave us with contact information for both Justin and me. You're welcome to reach out to either of us with questions or further exploration. A guy by the name of Jack Hamilton, who is also on this, is paying a lot of attention to what's happening here, and we would be happy to do personal overviews for your team, show you how many adults there are with intent to enroll within 50 miles of your campus, or you define the geography. This is stuff that Jack and I do all day, every day. So happy to do that if that's at all of interest. But definitely want to thank everyone for coming. And happy to, Shelley, if you have any sort of wrap up comments, we've got just 1 minute left. And then we
Just
can
enough time.
get everybody back to their day.
Yeah, no, just thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Dan and Justin, both for your valuable insight. I chuckled along to, it's just fun to play with. I can appreciate that. It would be fun to get in there and see what you can see. But hopefully this was helpful. As always, anybody online can reach out to me too. I can connect you with either gentleman on the screen if, we're not grabbing this fast enough. Dan, I know this is being recorded. Will you send a follow with the slides out, or
Yeah,
do
happy
people
to. Yeah,
expect
yeah.
some kind of follow-up
Yeah,
conversation?
the recording will take a couple of hours to render, but probably by later
Right.
this afternoon or early tomorrow, we can send both the recording and the slides. We'll be happy to do that. Yeah. And if you
Great.
have colleagues who didn't make it, feel free to share it with them. If they did register, we'll send it even to people who registered but weren't able to attend. So we hope to spread the word far and wide.
I love that. Perfect. Thanks so much.